The squat is one of the best movements that you can do for your lower body. But a lot of people can't do squats. But I bet you didn't know that there are so many different squat variations that you can choose from. So I'm going to show you all of them right now, and go ahead and pick the variation that's right for you. Okay, let's start at the beginning. This movement is called the lying heel push, and this is a great variation of the squat. And I know it doesn't look like a squat, but for people who can't even sit up from bed, or they have aches, pains, and injuries in their lower back, their knees, or other parts of their body that prevent them from being able to do the squat. For this movement, your goal is to build a mind-muscle connection with all the muscles of your legs. So all you have to do is lay down, put your heels into the ground, and push your heels, holding that tension for a few seconds, and then relaxing, and repeating that over and over again. If you practice this consistently, it's going to help you build the leg strength that will eventually allow you to get back to squatting in a way that feels good on your body. Okay, once you've built the strength in a lying position, it's really good to move to a seated position and continue practicing what's called a seated heel push. Now, just like before, what we're doing here is building the mind-muscle connection with all the muscles of your legs by pushing your heels into the ground, not actually standing up, but just using tension for a few seconds and then relaxing. And again, practicing this consistently, now in a seated position, is the step before we start adding some motion, getting you back to being able to move your body through the squat in a way that feels good. Okay, this variation is called the supported sit to stand. And it's the way we want to learn how to squat while using our arms for additional support. Now, a couple key points here. Make sure that your weight stays on your heel and you're hinging through your hips rather than pushing your knees forward and bending primarily through your knees. Secondly, make sure that your knees are going the same direction as your toes. This is going to protect those knees, and it's going to really help you feel good as you're doing this movement. And finally, really lean on your arms for support. That's going to help you do this movement without creating any aches and pains and building strength safely in your lower body. Now, once you can do these fairly easy, then we can go on to the next step. Okay, now that you've built some strength back in your legs and you're able to stand up from a chair in a way that feels good on your body, now we're going to try doing it without the hands. And this is one of my favorite movements that we call the sit to stand. And what you're going to want to do with this first variation is to move extra slow. We still want to make sure that we're building strong mind-muscle connection with all the muscles of our legs. And we also want to make sure that we focus on hinging primarily through the hips rather than pushing the knees forward, keeping the weight on the heels, and making sure the knees are going the same direction as your toes. Practice this movement slow and controlled at first, and then we can speed it up in the next position. Okay, if you were able to do those slow sit-to-stands and your body still felt good, now we can pick up the pace a little by doing a fast sit-to-stand. All the same key points are the same as the slow sit-to-stand, but you're going to be moving a lot faster in this variation of the movement. Just make sure to look out for all of the subtleties of your movement, like your knees starting to cave in as you go faster. Oftentimes, when people start to go faster, their form starts to break down. So only go as fast as you can while maintaining good form. Practice this, and once you feel comfortable at a faster pace, let's go on to the next step. Okay, now that you've mastered the sit-to-stand, we're going to work on something called triple extension. And what this means is that your hips are going to fully extend at the top of the sit-to-stand, your knees, but now we're adding another element. You're going to rise all the way up on your tippy toes, doing what's called a fully extended sit-to-stand. This is going to help you strengthen your calves and your feet while preparing you for the next variation of the movement. Okay, this next step is going to insert a little bit of impact into the squat. So if this causes any pain in your body whatsoever, you're not ready for this step. Go back a step or two and keep practicing those until you build a strong enough foundation to come here. But for this variation, it's called a sit to hop. So what you're going to do is start in a chair and stand up from that chair, and at the very top, go through that full triple extension, pushing off your toes, and do just a little hop. Now, it's really important that when we come back down, we want to make that movement smooth. You don't want to jump in the air and land hard. You want to jump in the air and land soft, starting with the balls of your feet, rolling to the heels, and then embracing the rest of the shock through the hips and through the knees, okay? So make sure you're practicing this good form. You can even do sit hops a little bit slower if you need to, really being methodical about every single hop that you perform. Now, this is a great movement to help you learn to absorb impact through your lower body, which is essential for things like walking and running. So practice this very consistently, and once it feels really easy and natural to you to jump and hop in a way that's pain-free, then you can move on to the next variation. Okay, now that your body's gotten used to being able to absorb some impact, we're gonna take away the chair and we're gonna practice a movement called squat hops. Now for this one, you're going to squat down slowly, and then you're gonna stand up and jump in the air, and then you're gonna land nice and softly, and then you're gonna repeat this over and over again. Now, what you wanna focus on for this one is that each rep is its own repetition. You're not trying to just jump and land over and over again. You wanna be mindful about landing softly still. So make sure you focus on each repetition as its own repetition and making sure that you're landing softly and resetting and being mindful about what you're doing so that you can embrace that impact rather than cause aches and pains on your joints, okay? Now, once you can do these and it feels good on your body, let's move to the next variation. Okay, this next variation is called the jump and land, all right? So the last couple of variations, we've been focusing on a little hop. So we're hopping and then we're landing on the ground. For this variation, we're gonna speed up the movement even more. I'm gonna try to jump very high as we can, as long as our form stays good. So you're gonna jump in the air, land softly, reset, and then repeat that process. Now, just like the last variation, I want every single repetition to be its own repetition, where you're focusing really intently on making sure that you have perfect form on this movement. This is designed to teach your body how to absorb impact in a way that feels good and doesn't cause injury. So the more patient you are and the more mindful you are about your form, the better it will feel on your body. Now, once you can do these, I got one more variation for you next. Okay, this last variation is called the jump squat. It's very similar to the jump and land, only for this variation, you're going to keep the movement consistent and rhythmic. So as you squat down, you'll jump up as high as you can, and as you land, instead of pausing to reset, you'll just squat back down and jump up as high as you can. Now, as with all the other movements, make sure that you're doing this with really good form. That way your body stays safe and learns how to absorb impact. But if you can do this movement, especially if you can do it for up to a minute, it's not only gonna strengthen your legs, give you more explosive power, give you more strength in your glutes, your core, your lower back, but it's also going to work your heart out like nothing you've ever experienced before. Okay, now that you know all 10 squat variations, you're probably wondering, how do I pick the variation that's right for me? Well, start at the bottom and see if you can do each variation for 1 minute. If you can do the variation for 1 whole minute with perfect form and it still felt pretty easy, go to the next variation and try that one. Once you've found a variation that feels right for you, meaning maybe you can't quite complete it perfectly for the entire minute, well, practice that variation 3 days per week. You could do 3 rounds of 30 to 60 seconds, 3 days per week, which is only about 5 minutes with some rest in between, and you will build some amazing leg strength with the right squat variation for you. Hey, if this felt too confusing and you're not sure which variation is right for you, well, let us build you a personalized at-home workout. All you gotta do is click the link right there and we'll build it for you for free. Also, if you have aches and pains in your knees, this video is gonna be a perfect fit for you.